Good vibrations.
So it's welcome back to the series to activist, researcher, public speaker Tony Sayers. He's been on before and we got him back today. Tony, welcome back, man.
Hi Mark, thanks for having me back here.
No worries. So people might be aware that you've been living in Southeast Asia in recent times. I know you've been in Cambodia. I think you spent some time in, Vietnam and Thailand as well?
I was in Thailand for the first month and I just kind of went where the wind took me. So I was floating around and then I had a friend who's from Essex, where I'm from, and he was in Cambodia, and he said, "Look, I'm down here by the coast. Why don't you come and visit me?" And so I did, because I wanted to see Angkor Wat as well. And I went down there, and I just fell in love with it down there. You know, the people very friendly, and obviously the weather it's a lot cheaper than the UK as well. So I had a really amazing adventure for a year and a half. But like I said to you off air, I kind of there's only so long you can sit on a beach for. I was kind of feeling itchy feet. I'd been doing a lot of stuff in the UK beforehand, and I needed to come back and see family and stuff. And also I came across some really amazing information along the way, which synchronicity put on my path. And so I've kind of brought that back with me as well. And I've just been doing some talks back here, and just kind of getting used to the weather change now as we get into the cold weather. And I've been a little bit in denial. I've been running around in my vest still from Cambodia and in the UK, still thinking I'm out there. But now it's kind of I'm kind of having to face reality. And but it was a great time, and a lot of time to think for myself and introspect and do some writing, get in touch with my creative side. And I'm back and I'm feeling good, and really keen to keep driving on and putting truth out there with the likes of yourselves and other people. So it's been really great for me.
So were you missing the surveillance and the miserable faces as well as the rain here?
Do you know what? It just wasn't the same, like walking down the street and not having a camera looking at you. Or it's so funny because Cambodia, I mean, I think I read it's the second most corrupt country in the world, but they call it corrupt, I call it freedom. So I mean, basically in that country, as long as you're wearing a motorbike helmet, you pretty much get left alone. And and even if you get caught without a motorbike helmet, you bung the copper a couple of dollars and he sends you on your way. So really that's about as far as it goes with the whole police state. And coming back here again, you can kind of feel it's a very, very dense, thick energy, whereas Southeast Asia is very feminine, light energy. So at the time in my life, it was very good for me to be over there, because I needed to do some inner healing and, like I say, get in touch with my creative side and write and that kind of thing. So, and then you come back here and, like, as you're landing down in Heathrow, it's like boom, you can kind of feel the difference in vibration. And the people are still looking sick, unfortunately, and but that's what we're here to do, isn't it? We're here to try and change that. And what has been really positive, what I've noticed since I came back, and is the huge amount of vegan food now in supermarkets. When I left, it was a struggle. I just started and there was nothing, and now it's like I was eating vegan fish fingers the other day, so it's really interesting coming back where, I think when you're here you think that nothing's ever changing, but like the amount of conscious conversations I'm having with people, even old friends, that they're approaching me now and saying, "Oh, do you know what? I was listening to what you were saying a few years ago, and I thought you were a bit crazy, but now I can kind of see it." And like I say, all the different health foods that are being stored in the shops, and I think veganism went up like 300% in the UK last year, and that's very symbolic of a raising in consciousness, albeit not as quick as we would like. But so I do see a lot of positive in this country, and I think it's important to get that across to people, because having been here all my life before, and fighting this battle, it's very much like, oh, people don't care, nothing's changing. But I can definitely say that a lot has changed since I've been away, and it's really positive to see.
Yeah, that must be a really interesting process to remove yourself from this setting for a while and look at it from a detached perspective before coming back into it. Were you around when these terror events were going off earlier this year in the spring?
Well, you're never far away from them when you're on Facebook, are you? So I saw them. I saw the regular updates, and I do a lot of vlogging, and with the internet, it doesn't really matter where you are. I was still like raising my awareness and putting my 2 penneth worth in about all these false flags and that kind of thing. So I was aware of it, and you can really see, I mean, this is the other thing, another positive, that they're really getting desperate. I mean, look at all the false flags. It's almost like one a week now, and more and more people are seeing through them. And the interesting with these, as we know, they don't have much creative ability themselves, is that they're running out of tricks.
Yeah, they sure have made full use of the vehicle ploughing into pedestrians narrative now, haven't they?
Yeah. I think they've uttered that one now. So
what, armed prams next, maybe, or pushchairs?
Yeah. God knows what will be next, but yeah, I just see desperation. I see a system that's in its death throes, and I know, like, on a surface level, when you walk around and like you said earlier, you see everyone like unhappy, unhealthy, and there is an underlying movement which is causing them a lot of problems, and it's credit to the alternative media and people like yourself, Mark, that's relentless, day in, day out, putting this stuff out. And just like the media, mainstream media, piggybacking on truth. They're now starting to report that cannabis could like potentially cure cancer, and they're coming out with more outlandish things as well about coconut oil is going to kill us all and stuff. So it's just getting more comical, and they're just making so many mistakes. There's so many bushfires now being set alight that they're trying to put them all out, and they can't. And it's just going to grow exponentially, and the next few years are really exciting. And I'm coming across some really exciting information myself, and I've really shifted. I think since I've been away, I've got a much more positive outlook on where we are, where we're going, and that's not to say it's not going to be without its problems, and it's not going to be easy, but I think we just need to keep driving it home, do what we're doing, and other people are joining the fight as we go.
Well, you certainly do sound very optimistic about things, and it's interesting how you've got this renewed perspective from having been away from these shores for a while, because as someone that's always lived here, I often feel quite bogged down in the quagmire, and your view can be quite tainted by always being in the same surroundings, so I'm sure there's some value to that process. All right, well, we're here today to talk about a controversial subject. Is there any other kind? I've done quite a lot of shows lately on social engineering and mass mind manipulation, but this aspect of all of that is pretty much the elephant in the room that so few people seem to be prepared to speak publicly about or discuss in any way because of the mechanisms that have been set in place to demonise you and deem you some sort of bigot if you go there. We're talking about the transgender agenda and the systematic popularisation of LGBT culture. Those two pretty much go hand in hand in terms of what's been going on, and you could throw into that mix things like gender fluidity, gender neutrality, and all that nonsense. And I'll just preface this by saying that I've got no problem with anyone's sexual orientation or lifestyle choices at all, so long as they don't cause any harm to others or take away the rights of others. And as long as they don't, then it's no problem. But we're not talking about individual expressions of choice here. What we're seeing play out in culture now is not natural or organic. It's a coordinated agenda to change society, and it's been put into place by those agencies that specialise in making these kind of things happen. Would you agree that that's the scenario we're looking at in terms of what's being done to culture, certainly in Western society right now?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd absolutely concur with with what you said about, I don't have a problem with people that want to express their way, and whatever their preferences is up to them, as long as they're not causing any harm or loss to others. So I agree with you on that. But yeah, absolutely. And I would say also that there are some unfortunate tortured souls that feel like they're born into a body which really they don't feel comfortable in, or they feel they don't belong in. That has always been there. But what we're seeing today is completely different. This is a forced agenda, and like you say, you broach this subject, you immediately get called a bigot. I've been called all kinds of names for even bringing this subject up. So there is a mind control aspect around this as well, whereby we can't even broach it, we can't even have an open and frank discussion about it for fear of being labelled a bigot, or just whatever that may be. But it's going on so many levels right now, and even funnily enough, we planned this talk about a few weeks ago, and last night I went on the BBC iPlayer because I still watch the odd thing here and there.
I hope you've paid for your TV licence, Tony.
Of course, but it's mainly Match of the Day because I still like my toe in the matrix, just to take me out of thinking about this. So that's my little guilty pleasure out every now and then. So I went on there, and you have to register, and I was like, what's all this about? And under the title, it was like Mr., Mrs., and then it was like neutral, and there was all these other labels, and you just see it. I mean, you can expect that from the BBC anyway, but you just see this subtly being forced upon us. Well, it's not even subtle now. I mean, I would say in the last, 2 or 3 years, this is just blown up in our faces, and it kind of started with all the celebrities. You've got the Caitlyn Jenners. Even I was going to ask you about this. Bradley Manning, apparently he was transgender. I don't know whether he actually was, or whether that's just a mockery of the truth movement. I was just thinking that before we came on air. But yeah, so we're seeing it forced upon us through media. Fashion shows. There's a whole array of Facebook pictures out there where these men are walking around in dresses on the catwalks. So it's being propagated on TV, on the fashion walks. So it's really in our faces, and all these videos coming out. I mean, where were they before? All these people coming out and saying that they don't identify with this and they don't identify with that. This is not normal. This isn't the odd person who feels tortured. This is someone is putting this out here, or someone is putting this information out there, and others are latching onto it because we know what humanity is like. We do like to stick with the crowd, and we do like to follow fashions, and many people have sort of things in their psyche which they've got problems, and if they can identify with a group, or the irony, identify, if they can latch on to a group that makes them feel special or more important, to hide their inner turmoil, whatever that might be, then that's very appealing to them. But it's not going to solve their problems by joining these things.
Well, it never used to be the case that there were so many transgendered individuals in society. I mean, I don't recall ever meeting anyone in my formative years as a child, as a teenager, in my 20s, even into my 30s, that was gender compromised in any way, such as we're talking about here. I mean, are we to believe that there's been this large number of individuals in society all along, but it's only in recent times that they felt comfortable enough coming forward and expressing themselves in this way? Or is it far more likely that there were never anywhere near this number of people buying into this whole thing, and it's only in recent times that they're coming forward as a direct result of the agenda that we're talking about here and all the factors that are driving it?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's always the argument for, against. That people will say, "Well, we live in much more liberal times right now," but I don't believe that to be the case at all. And I like you at school, I don't remember meeting anyone that was trans neutral or whatever. So it's definitely something that's cropped up, but it's so prominent in the media right now. It really is, but. The way I see it, there are multiple reasons for it. What I'm understanding now is that we have this whole satanic agenda, which basically are seeking to control, and they're trying to knock out the natural energies. As a human being, you'll know this yourself, Mark, but we have a more, as a male, we have a more dominant energy, which is our masculine, and the females have a more dominant energy, which is their feminine. And the masculine is all about action, it's about protection, it's about just really standing up for what's right, and that is not good for a controlling system. And the feminine energy is obviously care and nurture and love, and that's not good for them either. So what they're trying to do is knock out those natural energies in people, in the masculine. You take out that protective role in society, then it's going to be a lot easier to control. And you take out that loving care out of society, then people don't even care what's going on around them. Then you're really just left with an obsolete population of, just completely missing an inherent part of who and what they are. Now, I'm not saying that women need to be chained to a cooker in the kitchen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that we do have these natural energies. We have a masculine and feminine side in all of us, but of course we have a more dominant side if we are one gender, right?
Yeah, well, we're getting into spiritual realms here, as you've said. Once you get past the societal and the political, there are deep spiritual principles here, and there are male and female principles inherent in nature. It's encoded everywhere. As a blatant example, you need only look at the sun and the moon. You've got the strong masculine energy of the sun balanced by the feminine energy of the moon, and everything works in counterbalance in that way in creation. And this is why in languages like French and German, when I was learning those languages at school, I never used to be able to understand how inanimate objects like a table or a car could be le or la, as in masculine or feminine, and in German, der, die, das. Everything has a feminine or a masculine value ascribed to it. And I realise now it was just an expression of what we get in nature. The Creator made it that way, and any spiritually sound individual is able to express both aspects of their feminine and masculine side in balance and unity to each other. It's supposed to be that way. And so to deliberately confuse that situation and create imbalance is kind of implying that the Creator somehow got things wrong and that we can do so much better. Or to put a more sinister slant on it, that those pushing this agenda see themselves as their own creators, their own gods, in defiance of the one true Creator, and that's Satanism by any other name, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the laws, spiritual laws, isn't it? Is gender. The masculine and the feminine side to everything. But yeah, it is worrying, and I think it is a subject that really needs to be broached by more people. As you say, it's a very taboo topic, and there's not many out there that do want to talk about it. Well, no one wants to talk about it, but. So there's levels to it as well. So it's propagated in the media and fashion and that kind of thing, but also via infiltration as well. I mean, if you look at the amount, there's a chemical called bisphenol, which can mimic estrogen, and that's basically in plastic. I mean, literally all our food is in plastic. We've got the female hormones in alcohol, in beer. So ironically enough, you've got all these men in the pubs drinking beer, growing man boobs, thinking it's just the beer, when it's the chemical in the beer. The sperm count's being lowered because we know that they want to. There's a depopulation program underway, so it's imposing femininity on men, and of course the females, they're ingesting these chemicals. Now a female baby boy can start having, a male baby boy can start developing female tendencies in the womb nowadays because of the amount of this estrogen and this bisphenol, which is in everything. So not only is it on a media front, it's also in our food, it's in our plastic, and there's also another toxic chemical called pethocyanide, which is the green or the coloured plastic. And what that is doing, and this is where it goes to the next level, apart from the satanic agenda, and I'm talking artificial intelligence, is that has got copper in it, and then the nanotech coming through in the chemtrails and washing powder and the washing up liquid, which is actually AI conscious, because artificial intelligence has got so advanced that consciousness has permeated it. So that chemical is got high copper value. So the nanotech is attaching itself through that, and it's actually messing with our genetics. It's working down the genitalia, and it's messing with the stimuli. So people are getting to the point now where they don't even want to have sex, and this is all about AI as well as the satanic agenda, basically wanting to eradicate everything that makes us human, to turn us into these Borgs so they can infiltrate us and basically take us over and run their agendas through us, through cloning.
And just an aspect of the food and drink agenda, I've heard from various sources that when it comes to soy-based products, soya products, these often contain estrogen-mimicking ingredients. And this could be slowly feminizing, unknowingly, men who are ingesting these products. And this is of concern to anyone who is trying to pursue a vegan diet and lifestyle, because the main alternative to meat and dairy is soya-based products, even down to soya milk to replace dairy milk. So you've got a situation, potentially, where people who, in good conscience and through personal will, are trying to make this positive, conscious change in their life, still being subject to this kind of manipulation.
Yeah, I mean, that is a worrying one, and you look at it in the supermarkets everywhere. Like I say, it's good that there are cruelty-free products out there, but soy is very prominent. I mean, if it's either, if it's not meat, it's soy nowadays, and it is worrying. And actually, it's a really good point, because I hadn't thought of the soy aspect, but you bring up a good point there. But yeah, it's everywhere, isn't it? I mean, all our products are encased in plastic. It doesn't really matter what you buy, and that's all going into us, which is messing with our genes and our genetics. So yeah, there's this like satanic agenda which is seeking to control, that thinks it's in charge, and then you've got the AI agenda, which is coming through us and latching onto some of these products and changing our genetics, and they're also seeking to control. So it does go a lot deeper than just the surface level stuff that we see in the media. It's really all just to knock out our energies and just make us easier to control, so we can be continued to be used as batteries for them, whether that be through our fear energy or whatever.
Yeah. On the soya products front, I've taken to buying almond and cashew milk as an alternative to soya milk, because that's the main non-dairy one that you see in supermarkets and stuff. But the almond and cashew stuff is really good. You can have it on your cereals, you can put it in your tea, and it's a great alternative to dairy. So what we're looking at here is population reduction, and it's being done by stealth, so it slips under most people's radar, because it's far more effective doing it subtly than going for blatant methods of extermination that can be seen and understood and resisted, like, rounding people up in a street and machine gunning them. It's pretty obvious what's going on there. But this is the sneaky way of doing it, where if most people don't even notice that it's going on, it can be a far more effective way of getting the desired results.
Yeah, well, like most things that they do, it's either hidden in plain sight, where it's so blatantly obvious people can't even consider it because it would be too obvious to them, or it's all on a very subtle level. So yeah, they can sneak it under the radar. But I just want to read you an excerpt which I found. So many plastic bottles contain bisphenol or similar estrogen chemical, which have been linked to disruptive sperm production. Researchers exposed several different types of mice to low concentrations of BPA at birth for a short period of time. Once the mice were sexually mature, the scientists examined the animals, tested and measured sperm count. In exposed males, the sperm was significantly lower in 2 out of 3 mice strains tested. So it just goes to show that, this stuff really ties in with the depopulation program, and it's going on, and we need to be aware of it for sure.
Yeah, and there are prior cases we can look at to get a handle on what's going on here. I mean, the obvious one to me is the feminist movement, which rose up in the 1960s under the leadership of Gloria Steinem. So she was the founder of Ms. magazine, as in Ms. as a title for females, so they don't have to use Miss or Mrs., and it puts them on a level footing with males. And it was all about the idea of women seeing themselves as the equal of men in everything. So anything men can do, women can do just as well. And primarily that involved getting women into the workplace, paying taxes and contributing to that whole system, and feeling that they can pursue careers rather than raise families and nurture children as per their traditional role. So it was all about breaking up the family unit and creating single-parent families and jacking up the divorce rate and changing culture in all those ways. And of course, Gloria Steinem in her later years confessed to having been in the employ of the CIA. She was an agent working on behalf of the CIA who were behind this whole project of feminism, seemingly empowering women, making them think that they'd got a voice through which they could express themselves, but the whole while it was just a cynical exercise in culture changing at the hands of the CIA. That was what was going on then. What we see now is pretty much the same agenda, just repackaged for a different generation with similar aims. It's all about changing the fabric of society, and it's always the traditional family unit that's under attack.
Yeah, absolutely. And, if men aren't in their masculine, then it puts the females in their masculine by its very nature, because they feel that they have to step up. And you see it. A lot of, just in terms of like relationships and stuff, a lot of, men are frustrated because they don't feel that women are in their feminine, and the females are frustrated because they don't feel like they're in their masculine. So, it's also on another level, another divide and conquer tool. So, when we're both out of our natural energies, then it's going to disrupt the whole of society and just our personal relationships too. So it's such a multifaceted topic that goes on different levels, and it's really quite a fascinating one. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to observe the dynamics in just relationships and people these days. And I think wasn't that part of, going back to that, wasn't that part of the whole trying to masculise the feminine as well? Wasn't that like a masculine thing to do at the time? And that was propagated heavily.
Yeah, I think there was a point probably in the late 1950s when cigarette advertising was specifically aimed at females for the first time. And the idea was to convince them that it was cool and sophisticated, and to say, hey ladies, it's not just men that can smoke, why don't you get involved in this cool activity as well? And I believe it was Edward Bernays, known as the father of propaganda, the inventor of PR spin, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud and a major establishment player. I think he was quite instrumental in those early cigarette advertisements aimed towards women.
Yeah, no, it's very alarming, and unless we're aware of it and broach these subjects, then it's going to be very difficult to turn back the hands of time, and we really need to be careful what we're putting into our bodies as well, and really do the research on these chemicals that are hidden. Like you say, they're hidden in things. It all looks very innocent when you go into the supermarkets and you're buying these products, but when you look closely, these things are changing us on such a deep level, and who knows, 10 years down the line, what kind of society we're gonna grow up in, and the kids are going to grow up in, because nobody's going to be really sure of who or what they're supposed to be. There's going to be all these different personalities, and all that does is it just makes us weaker as a society and as a race of beings, really, and it's going to make us a lot weaker in terms of being able to sort this mess out.
Yeah, and I've listed a few ways in which this whole gender neutrality thing is expressing itself now, and I think you've made reference to a couple of these already. So we've got unisex toilets going in for kindergarten-age children. So instead of little boys' and little girls' rooms, you now have these neutral toilets that all children are able to use if they feel confused about which one they should be going in. It's just straight insanity. Then you've got stories of little boys being sent to school in dresses. I mean, what is going through parents' minds that do this? You mentioned that there seem to be some souls that are trapped in the wrong bodies, and, they're female but they should have been male, and vice versa. And that may well be the case, but that understanding is not going to manifest itself until later in life, until your teenage or adult years. At 4 or 5 years of age, you're really not able to make that kind of decision. It's not apparent by that point. So, subjecting kids of that age to this agenda is just completely unjustified. You've got kids being asked to fill in forms where they're asked for their gender, and there's an option for neither. If they don't feel comfortable saying they're a boy or a girl, they can opt for the other one. It's more straight madness. You've got the whole Bruce and Caitlyn Jenner thing, which you mentioned. You've got Doctor Who becoming a woman, after decades of shape-shifting between various male forms. Suddenly Doctor Who is now able to be a woman. You've got the grime artist Skepta, which I've mentioned in a couple of other interviews, turning up at this awards do in some women's knitwear. And the interviewer says, what are you wearing, Skepta? And he says, oh yeah, this is some women's stuff. I'm gender fluid now. I mean, a few years ago, a grime artist proclaiming they were gender fluid and wearing women's clothing would have been laughed off the scene and would never have been taken seriously or worked again. But seemingly now it's okay because you're not allowed to speak out or voice any objection to this sort of stuff, so it's just accepted. And then you've got Russell Brand. Ugh.
Oh, God. Do you remember that, Mark?
Russell Brand saying that he's going to raise his child gender neutral.
Oh, well, that is a clear sign. If anyone still thinks Russell Brand is fighting for truth, then that's the final nail in the coffin. I mean, come on, this is crazy. That guy, he couldn't give two flying about what's going on. So, it's that's no surprise. But also another thing that I want to say, and again, this isn't a very popular thing, but they are lumping in this whole LGBT in with the gay rights as well, and paedophilia and this transgender is all being lumped into the gay movement, and it's creepy. It's being allowed to creep in that, so it creeps in society's consciousness as something to be accepted. And gay people don't want to hear that, which I understand. But it's going on, and they're making these things all more acceptable in the public mind by slowly but surely just infiltrating these movements with these really perverted ideologies.
Yeah, well, there is a very thin line between those things, I think, as you suggest. Do you remember this event a couple of years ago? I mean, how soon we forget. It involved David Cameron, who nobody thinks about anymore, rightly so, but he was all in the public's consciousness a couple of years ago in the UK. And so he's on this morning TV programme this morning with Philip Schofield, and they're talking about this dossier that's come to light that's supposed to document parliamentary paedophiles. I mean, there's enough of them to choose from, seemingly. And Schofield is challenging Cameron about this having come to light. And he's saying, you know, there's some serious high-profile names on this list. What's going to be done about this? And Cameron, rather than addressing the problem of paedophiles in high positions in Parliament, turns the whole situation around 180 degrees, and he starts to make the conversation about homosexual people. And he says, you know, Philip, we've got to be careful not to make this a witch hunt against gay people. You know, excuse me? So now the whole discussion about paedophiles, or child rapists, to call them what they really are, has been neutralised because Cameron's turned it into a discussion about gay people.
Yeah, I do remember it well. And actually, I think even the word paedophile has just been completely neutralised. I mean, does that even mean anything to people anymore? I mean, like, we should start calling it what it really is, like you say, child rape.
That's right.
But you know, it's used so much. It's been desensitized in people's mind. We hear it so much now. It's like water off the duck's back for most people. Oh, he's a paedophile. You know, we've forgotten, or we're disconnected from what these people are actually doing, which is the worst kind of thing that you can ever imagine. And it's very clever what they do and how they do it. I mean, I hate what they do, but how they do it is very subtle, and over time, drip, 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 and you know, like always, we seem to follow it and swallow it up.
Yeah, well, paedophile means lover of children, from the philos bit from the Latin. Loving as in, you know, to gaze lovingly upon and appreciate the beauty of children. But I think we're talking about something rather different here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think we are. Yeah, much more horrific than that. But yeah, they're always bastardising these words and using them for their own sick agendas, and you know, because words carry power, you know that, and you know, spellings are spells. So literally, so when people see some of these words, it's casting an ideology into their subconscious as to what that word actually represents. So I feel there's a lot more deeper, deeper reasons as to why they use certain words.
Yeah, and just as recently as 50 years ago, 1967. Homosexuality was still illegal and a punishable offence in the UK. It could get you jail time. And here we are 50 years on, and it's not only completely tolerated, it's actually encouraged and openly celebrated. And I'm not making any moral judgment on that at all. I'm just pointing out that that is the case. Who really thinks that that kind of about turn in public attitudes just occurs by itself, by people becoming more liberal in their thoughts, and it's just what happens with the passage of time? I would suggest that it doesn't, and that kind of radical altering in public attitudes is made to happen. It's wanted, and it's put into place by, again, those that can make this thing happen.
Yeah, but, you know, also as well, I do feel like, you know, again, this isn't going to be popular, but I do feel that it's very much forced on us all the time. I mean, like, you know, there's gay pride in every town now, and like, where's straight pride? Do you know what I mean? It's like I don't know. It just seems to be that they're using all this just to drip feed other agendas into it as well. And I don't know. I just don't feel comfortable. It's not that I've got a problem with it. It's just I feel that it's so in your face now, everything.
Let me just put a parallel in there. So we're getting all this popularisation of LGBT lifestyles and values and stuff. Can you imagine if instead of all of that, we were getting a popularisation in culture of veganism and a really strong movement towards vegan lifestyles and diets? So imagine you started getting vegan characters in EastEnders and Coronation Street, vegan celebrities coming out endorsing these diets and stuff, and you had vegan pride marches and rallies and things like that where thousands of them would get together. If that happened, people would be asking the question, what the hell is it with all these vegans? Why is everyone vegan all of a sudden? Why are we having this stuff shoved down our throats? Why is it in the media 24/7?
Yeah, absolutely. And the scary thing is, when you look at it like that, it seems to be that we've sunk so low in consciousness that whatever kind of agenda that they want to press upon us, they can do it. Even when it comes to, like, changing our own sexualities, even if we have a certain piece of anatomy downstairs. You know, they've even managed to you know, what they've done is really quite genius. If they can do that and they make people believe that they're something that they're not, then there's no end to what they can do.
And I can imagine if that happens and you had loads of celebrities suddenly taking on these vegan lifestyles, so many people would follow in their example, follow in their footsteps. You know, human nature being what it is, people would just want to emulate their heroes in this. And that wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing in my book if large numbers of people did start pursuing vegan lifestyles. But that's not something I can see happening anytime soon because it doesn't suit the current control system to have people making those choices versus having billions of animals going to their horrific, nightmarish, brutal deaths every single day and making billions for the meat industry and those that invest in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just taking it a step further, can you imagine if they used their TV and fashion parades and media and radio to promote love and unity and helping each other and caring for each other and you know, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Christian, you just love each other. Can you imagine if that was propagated all the time? Can you imagine what kind of world we would live in then? But they don't, because you know they're sick in the head. But yeah, veganism is very close to my heart too. And I'm at the point now where, you know, if you're still eating the flesh of dead animals. And we all know what goes on in these slaughterhouses now. There's enough out there online. It hasn't always been in the public consciousness because it's been well hidden. It's like the abattoirs. They keep them out of the towns so no one can see what's going on. Well, thanks to the alternative media and the vegan movement, it's now quite blatant what's going on. And I really don't think that how can you be about truth and freedom for others? How can you be about freedom when you're still enslaving others? And you know, how can you talk about peace when there's an actual nightmare on your plate? You know, I'm at the point now where I just don't take people seriously if they're still eating rotten dead animal flesh. Again, it's not a popular one, but that's the way I see it now. I just don't, you know, I feel like where we're going in terms of our vibration and raising in consciousness, it's not going to allow for people to eat fear energy. I mean, that's what you're doing when you're eating a dead animal. And this is the other thing, the hypocrisy of it. People talking about, oh, it's all energy, and then they're eating fear energy. So it's when it suits them. And it would be wonderful, Mark, if they used the media to promote something like veganism, and we could all move in that direction as freedom for everyone, all beings, and causing no harm to anyone, including our cousins, which are the animals, which are here to share this experience of being on this prison planet, I guess.
Yeah, and if you did see a major change towards large numbers of people adopting vegan lifestyles like that, you'd have to draw the conclusion, well, I would anyway, that it's been made to happen again in some way. It wouldn't be a reflection of individuals making these decisions for themselves in those kind of large numbers that really affect culture in a major way, I would suggest, because that sort of thing just doesn't happen. So there would have to be some kind of ulterior motive at play. I mean, maybe it goes back to what I was saying earlier about soya-based products, the idea that it's feminizing males and it's playing havoc with hormone balances in people. Maybe there's some other health issues that would be involved with a vegan diet if not properly researched.
Well, you're right to be discerning after everything we've been through. But yeah, I mean, and actually I have seen it quite a lot. You know, there's billboards and now there's celebrities coming out, and it does make you think. But you know, ultimately, I can't. My consciousness won't let me, eat a dead animal. So I think I'd rather eat their poison, whatever they're going to sell us next, than still be part of that. I just feel that strongly about it. Yeah, and I think that's from what you're saying about it. So it's probably already going on. I mean, if there's soy and there's these estrogens and these other mimickers in almost everything else. You know, why wouldn't they put it in these products? And there is a lot of vegan junk food out there at the moment, and I have to say, unfortunately, I've been eating a bit too much of it myself lately, which is something that I need to work on. But there's such a widespread movement that they're going to want to get their fingers up on it, and they're going to want to try and control it somehow. But I guess it's just being discerning and questioning these things like we're doing now, questioning the soy. I mean, I read the other day, I did a post about soy the other day, that the whole soy is bad thing was put out in the 1970s because veganism and vegetarianism started to become quite big. And I just put that out there because I thought, well, yeah, I could understand why they would do that. They don't want people being healthy. But I got a bit of a barrage on it, and no, soy's really bad, no. But then I also got, well, organic soy is good, and so it's a bit of a minefield working out whether or not soy is actually good. I know they eat it in China and they've lived on it for thousands of years, but that's the good, I guess, organically grown stuff, probably not the processed stuff that we're eating. So I think soy in its original format is probably good. This is what I'm just going with my intuition. It's probably good in its original format, but I think it's been probably heavily manufactured and tampered with, and like a lot of other stuff that used to be good for us, probably maybe not so these days. So it's just trying to find the right products, I guess.
And you can bet that the meat and dairy industries, being worth the billions that they are going to have propaganda departments that are working full-time on spin and getting the right stories out there and influencing the sort of things that are written and spoken about in the media about food and drink issues. You can bet they've got a lot of sway on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you know, all the meat's pumped with hormones and growth bovine hormones and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure there's some kind of estrogen and kind of chemicals that are also swaying people that way as well in that. But yeah, they'll be looking at it, and if they don't jump on board and try and buy out some of these companies, then they'll do their best to discredit it or offer an alternative, which, like you say, will probably not be very beneficial to the human body.
All right, so we took a bit of an alternative route there, which does tend to happen from time to time in these conversations. I just want to go back to the transgender agenda stuff that we were talking about. Just one more point that I wanted to raise with you. How do you feel about the situation with Sir Elton John, to give him his proper title, and David Furnish adopting those two baby boys that they did a few years ago? You might recall that Chris Spivey had a lot to say about this. He covered it on his website at the time. I mean, what would you say to anyone who would come at you and say, well, what's the problem here? We live in a tolerant society, so why shouldn't a gay couple be allowed to raise kids? I mean, what do you think are likely to be the detrimental effects on those two boys of growing up without a feminine role model? Just wonder how you feel about that.
Oh, there's a question.
Well, you're the man for the job.
Yeah, cheers, Mark, for that. Right, okay, so I'm just going to be honest. I think, a healthy, functioning family requires a female and a male energy. I feel that's how the Creator wanted it, and I feel that's how... I mean, I'm not saying that those kids will grow up traumatised, although, I question Elton John and his links with whatever. You'll know more about that than me, probably.
Sir
but
Elton, yeah.
Sir Elton, yeah, he's got a Sir. Well, that tells you a lot already. But, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that they won't be good kids and they won't grow up to be good kids, but could they be the best versions of themselves without an innate natural motherly figure with those natural nurturing qualities? I don't think they could. So I just see the family unit as the family unit. You have a male father with a penis and a woman mother with a vagina, and that's the way it was intended. And that's how it will always be for me. But yeah, I mean, people choose what they want to choose, but I don't feel that it's. I don't feel it's right for a fully functioning society, and I don't feel it's right for the children.
I remember Chris Spivey on his website a while back was questioning this whole Elton John, David Furnish adoption of those two baby boys. And he was asking the question, can you imagine if this wasn't a Sir, a famous celebrity, part of the club, and his partner, but was instead two regular Joes from society? Just look at the stuff that Elton John is into. You know, he's been a drug addict for most of his life. He's done every bloody narcotic known to man. He's been an alcoholic. He collects occult literature. He's into the works of Aleister Crowley and all kinds of dark occult stuff. He's a collector of paedophilic art, you know, these paintings depicting young naked boys. Not exactly a healthy role model, I would suggest, for someone to adopt. And yet he was given the green light without any problems. And the other thing about that is there was a press conference where Elton John first announced that he and his partner were going to adopt these two baby boys. And he starts out by saying at first he didn't want to do it because he tours a lot, he's often away from home, and he didn't think it would be fair because he'd never be around. But then he saw the boys in question and he fell in love with them. And then he thought, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. So, yeah, great stuff there.
Yeah, see, I don't even know what the rules and laws are on it. I mean, can any like same-sex couple adopt a child nowadays, or was it just because he was Elton John?
I mean, you know, honestly, who believes that any kind of sane background check into the circumstances behind a couple like that wouldn't flag them up as unsuitable to be raising babies if we weren't talking about a celebrity with a Sir in his title?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's that's being in the know, that is, I think. Yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, completely bad. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you're talking just two general males parenting, then I stick by my opinion I said before. But I just want to make it clear to the listeners that I do not think Elton John needs to be anywhere near a child. But I think you're just using that as an example as two males.
Well, I was, yeah, just a celebrity couple that people would know. So, how do you cope with all the abuse and the trolling that you get, man? Because, you know, you address some very controversial issues and there's not many people that you could call on to have a discussion like this because people just don't want to go there with these subjects. And there are many others that you've addressed. I've seen on Facebook you get involved in chat threads that go on for days and, you know, people are just laying into you and you answer them back and you stand your ground. And I would just be out the door, to be honest. I don't know how you get the energy to kind of stick it like that. I mean, what inspires you to just keep going with all this stuff and take all this flack and abuse that you have to put up with?
Sometimes not very well. But no, I to be honest, Mark, I've stepped back from it the last few... I mean, I'm getting so heavily censored now. It's like, I used to get in, like, you know, I used to get into these threads that lasted for days, sometimes weeks. But, you know, I put a post out now and, I mean, I've got like, I don't know how many, 20,000 on my main account. I'm banned from that at the moment. It's about my 4th or 5th ban. And, you know, it gets out to, like, I don't even know if it's 5% of the people that are supposedly following me. So, you know, there are less arguments by default, really, because of the censorship. But also, you know, I feel like I've changed a lot, and I don't want to be getting into arguments so much anymore. And the work that I'm doing has changed. I'm really sort of going towards the sort of metaphysical side, and I don't know. I just feel like, I probably it's right for me to not get involved in so much of that anymore, but it might not be entertaining for some of you. Some people like to see those threads, but no. At the end of the day, I'm still going to do my thing, put the truth out there, and I'll still stand my ground. But I just do it in a different way now because it wasn't really benefiting me and my life. So I'm looking for a bit more balance now and just doing things in a lot more measured and probably a bit more mature way. I think, if I'm being honest with myself, but I think what I did was good for me at the time, and you know, it's exciting for me is to sort of transcend into this kind of new version, and you know, we're always growing, aren't we? So that's I'm more about self-healing and what we can do for ourselves and working on the inner child. I've been doing a lot of that because this is a huge arena that I didn't even know anything about until recently. That, you know, as human beings, just being born on this planet, we're so we have experiences that fractures the mind into these protector characters, and as we grow up, we start identifying with these protector characters. Our ego starts identifying with these protector characters, and we become a mishmash of all these different characters and not who we really are. So I've been working on that side of things as well, and that's really important because I'm finding out that the inner child is actually the higher self, and you know, we need to heal the higher self. So just a lot of work around self-healing, about the metaphysical, about, you know, the chakras being part of the manipulation, which again isn't very popular. I guess that's why I've been given that job as well. So working on to do with artificial intelligence and how they're manipulating things behind the scenes, and just going, I guess, more deeper down the rabbit hole with more interesting information, but a lot less, perhaps, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot less intense on the whole, you know, getting the message out on other things.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely supposed to mature as a person and also as a researcher as you go on. And it's always good to see that process taking place with new information that comes your way. It changes your outlook on things, and you're not in the same place that you were a year ago or 3 years ago or whatever. So, you know, that's a process I can always respect. So you mentioned that you were pretty much done with writing a book. So what's that all about, and when can we expect to see that?
So when I was in Cambodia, I wrote a book. Basically, it's on mind control, and I try and talk about as many aspects as possible about the mind control of humanity and how that plays out in the physical realm through things like tradition and religion and education and basically our misunderstanding of our own spiritual nature, or the fact that we don't even realise that we're a spirit. We have a spiritual nature in some cases. Just about how these servants of the system are also holding us back, i.e. the military and the police and the bailiffs and all the yes men for the system, and just it's really putting into question a lot of the things that we believe, and you know, a lot of the subjects are things that, you know, other researchers have spoken about, but it's my way of putting it across. And so I was saying to your fair, I've got one chapter to do, but then I've come across all this metaphysical stuff, and it's like, that book really isn't where I am right now. So I don't know if I'll even finish it. I should finish it because it's still relevant, but the motivation has left me a little bit lately for it. But I'll get through the last chapter, so I should think in the next sort of 6 months or so.
Well, that's what volume 2s are for.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I should definitely get it out.
Well, I reached a point with my book where I hadn't told the whole story, but I realised if I'd waited to try and get everything in, it would be about another 5 years before it appeared. So I made the decision to create a cut-off point, and everything up to that point was volume 1, and I wanted to get it out there, get the information to people as quickly as possible, and keep the rest of it back for volume 2, which can be unleashed at a later date when people have absorbed the first lot.
Yeah, well, that's probably just made my mind up because I've been a bit on the fence of it, and when you explain it like that, it makes perfect sense to do that because I put a huge amount of effort in it. So I've just been dilly-dallying, thinking, oh, now I know all this. I'll definitely get it done, and it will be out. Yeah, be out hopefully within the next 6 months, and I look forward to it, and it will be great.
Yeah, good stuff. So for anyone listening to this in advance of Sunday 1st of October 2017, you're going to be at an event called Truth and Freedom alongside Max Egan at Suju in Swindon. I'll be comparing that one. What do you want to tell people about what you're going to be addressing there?
Yeah, so what I'm addressing there is basically, it's multiple levels. We've got so many overlays on us. Basically, these overlays, so we know that this is like a holographic reality, and we can, like we can put programs and viruses on computers, these programs and viruses can be put on us. So basically what I found out through a lovely lady who I met called Abigail Patman when I was over in Cambodia, and we worked onto this together, that we were finding these overlays, and basically the chakras being one of them, the chakras acting as these beautiful spinning vortexes, rainbow coloured vortex lotus flowers that we've been told to love, and that have been in the human psyche for years, are actually, what they've done is made the most beautiful looking thing, the most evil thing look the most beautiful, because what these chakras are basically acting as are basically plugs for interdimensionals just outside of our physical realm, in the fourth dimension, that lock in and feed on our negative emotions, our fear, our anxieties. And what they do is they loop them back round. So we end up in these perpetual cycles of negative loops, negative feedback loops, which is feeding them all the time. And it kind of ties in a little bit with David Icke, what he was saying, because he spoke about that there are these entities that feed on our emotions, but what he didn't explain is how they feed on our emotions. And I guess this is the how. So this is the how of how they're doing it. So that's it in a very short nutshell. I mean, they're also, and via sexual energy as well, when we're plugged in, they can feed off other people's sexual energy when we're having sex, and we're corded and plugged into others. And so it goes very deep, but also, the chakras is just like 0.1% of the whole body of information. We've also been overlaid on the universal life energy that we can receive by 50%. The nutrition that we can intake has been overlaid by 50%. Our astrological signs are overlaid. So basically, what that means is but the astrological sign is basically our blueprint, so they can see what kind of soul we are coming into the body. And they've overlaid them so we get heavily influenced by full moons or by Mercury retrograde. And it's about, it's going into that. It's going into about how AI is infiltrating the bodies. It's conscious. It's coming through in the nanotech. When it comes through into the body, it's releasing toxins. It's got a GPS tracker in it, which is monitoring our physical location. It can monitor our levels of consciousness, and once we reach a certain level, it pulsates and puts the body systems out. So it's kind of like we're in a three-pronged attack at the moment. So we've got the physical level going on, the physical manipulation going on the surface level, and then we've got the interdimensionals just outside visible sight, which are also hijacking us. And then you've got AI, which are really, what I'm finding, are the head of the snake. They seem to be pulling all the strings, and they've got these families and bloodlines that they're also podded up, and so it's a very, very deep rabbit hole. It's new information, and that's what I'll be talking about in more depth at the talk.
Another controversial subject.
Another one, like I need another one, right?
Exactly. Yeah, a women's institute knitting circle it is not. So have you got any further speaking engagements beyond that one you want to mention?
No, I just had my last one last week. Yeah, the one that I've got with Max is the last one, and then probably be next year. I'm aiming to come about. I'm going to go away for a few months, and maybe I'll finish the book there and come back, and I'll do some more talks in and around the UK and wherever I'm desired, really. So, but you can catch up with me. I've got my website, which is www.transcendingtimes.org. So that's always got where I am, what I'm doing, and that kind of thing. And obviously I'm on Facebook and YouTube as well. So.
Yep, and that event is Truth and Freedom in Swindon, 1st of October. If you do a Google search for Truth and Freedom with Max Egan and Tony Sayers, I'm sure you'll find it. All right, Tony, thanks for coming on today, man.
Thanks, Mark.
This is just for that. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up